Hey everyone, and welcome back. Now today I wanted to talk a little bit about Ethereum because if any of you are at all like me, Ethereum has been kind of bleeding for a really long time, and I'm kind of starting to wonder when the madness will stop. And so I wanted to kind of dive in a little bit further into that today to see if we could find an answer to that question. So that's what we're going to be looking for ultimately today, and hopefully we can find ourselves a good answer to that. But I guess that remains to be seen. So let's go ahead and dive right in. So starting out, we can see looking at the crypto bubbles, it's an overall very mixed day in the market. I think this is kind of, if I had to take a guess, this is a lot of what we'd expect to see kind of during the month of September. I'm sure we'll see kind of a lot of ups, we'll see a lot of downs. Overall, we're kind of just getting a general sense of choppiness going on. And I think overall that makes a decent chunk of sense. The market really has not decided where it's going yet. There's a lot of bears in the market saying, that the 4-year cycle is broken, it's over, see you in 2-3 years. And then we can take another run at an all-time high. Then we also have the bulls who are like, this is where we're at in the cycle. This is to be expected. This is exactly what we've seen before. This is exactly what we're seeing again. There's nothing to be worried about. So, but there's definitely like both camps are very loud, right? And so obviously, only the future knows what exactly is going to happen there and can predict the ultimate outcome of that. But I think this is kind of reflected in the chart, right? It's just very mixed, a lot of choppiness, a lot of ups, a lot of downs, no real direction on the market, bullish or bearish at this point. So looking at the crypto derivatives visual screener, we can see the same type of thing. Again, very mixed all throughout between, I would say shorts entering and closing are kind of the two least popular of the 4 quadrants. Longs closing and longs entering definitely seems to be kind of where things are at. If I had to give an overall bias, I would say it is more bullish because shorts are closing and longs are entering, which again doesn't always mean that this is a good thing. But over the past 24 hours, that means that overall there's a more bullish sentiment. Now, again, if you've been following along on the channel, that means I would probably be looking to short something because this is always wrong and the market always seems to move in the opposite direction. So if we look at the 4-hour, we can see, very, very mixed. 1 hour, it's a little bit more bearish, but on the larger time frame, it is, like I said, overall, I would call it mixed, but if I had to pick a direction, I guess I would call it bullish, but definitely not very much. So getting into kind of what we want to talk about today with Ethereum and kind of what seems to be the perpetual bleeding, how do we deal with that, right? How do we kind of find a frame of reference for what is going on and potentially when it could stop? And so looking right now, we've got the Bitcoin or the altcoin season index, right? Anything that is not Bitcoin is an altcoin. And so right now, we are very firmly in Bitcoin season. I think this kind of makes sense for what we've seen previously. Obviously we did see a little bit of a run in March, but ultimately it's been all about Bitcoin. There's a reason I've been focusing so much on Bitcoin on the channel lately is just because it's very much kind of dictating where the market goes. And so if we look at the ETH Bitcoin chart, we can see, for like the past years, essentially, it's been a straight downtrend, meaning Ethereum continues to get weaker against Bitcoin. Now, as we can see, if we kind of start to zoom in a little bit here, we have started to see, a little bit of a support here on like the 0.042 area. This could potentially signal that we're seeing a bottom, and then maybe we'll start to see Ethereum kind of tick back up. However, if we look at it from a macro perspective, though, Bitcoin is usually the one that leads the market, right? And so I don't think we've seen a top for Bitcoin yet. So what that would mean to me is I would expect to see Ethereum continue to bleed to Bitcoin, potentially even dropping below this 0.04, into like the 0.03, high 0.03s maybe. This is kind of what it seems to me, purely just from the sense of like, I don't think we've seen a top on Bitcoin, and Bitcoin usually moves before everything else. So even if Ethereum were to do nothing but stay steady, it still would bleed against Bitcoin, right? And so in order for this to continue to go up, Ethereum would have to continue to make gains greater than what Bitcoin is making, which I just don't see that happening, at least until Bitcoin has made a top, right? Again, who knows? It could happen. Anything could happen. I do think the Ethereum system, like the ecosystem, is fundamentally very bullish and innovative. I think a lot of the innovations and progress that we're seeing in crypto largely can be traced back to Ethereum. So this is not at all to say that like I think Ethereum is going to zero, against Bitcoin. But what I am saying is just because we believe in Ethereum does not mean that like the opportunity cost is now in favor of buying Ethereum, right? Like that we still could see this continue to bleed before we see a bounce. And I am kind of inclined to think that might be the case. And so another reason that I think we're seeing, Ethereum sitting in a bit of this precarious situation is partly due to the ETFs. And now before we go into the ETFs, I wanted to look at kind of just an Ethereum chart, right? Now this chart is on Margex. If you like to trade and you like to trade leveraged positions, Margex is a really, really great exchange to do that. It does not require KYC. It does not require a VPN. You can access it from anywhere in the world. You just need to read like the terms and conditions, make sure that like it's something that you're able to do. But overall, like you're able to access this anywhere in the world. It's a really, really fantastic place to trade. You can trade both Ethereum and Bitcoin with up to 100x leverage, which is really nice. I have not been trading too much Ethereum lately just because we can see, it sits in a relatively precarious situation with it kind of dancing on this like what I would call a major line of support. We did see it actually break below that a little bit and then obviously bounce back into it. But, it's sitting on a pretty good line of support. If we look at like the daily chart, we are starting to see, let's reform this chart a little bit. So we are starting to see, obviously there's a decent line of support here at 2100, and then there's, a decent line of support here at kind of where we're sitting right now. If we break this, which we've wicked into a little bit, we haven't sustainably broken it, but if we go from there, I would imagine we'd find our next level of support somewhere around 2150 to 2180, I guess you could say. But, but we have seen a lot of wicks up, right? And when you're trading leverage, you can get liquidated. Like even if you're right on the overall macro move, like let's say we just think it's going to go down, you could get liquidated long before that actually happens just because of how leverage works. So obviously you need to be very careful if you're trading leverage, but if you've had, if you understand kind of some of these smaller market moves, trading with such high leverage can actually be very, very useful. I've been trading the Bitcoin chart and playing some of these smaller moves here. Let's go down to an hour. I've been playing some of these smaller moves. We can see, some of these big drops with the recoveries and, some of these recoveries with the big drops. I've been playing some of those. We could see some of my recent trades. I had a 224%, and then I also had another 189%. Both of these were, with Bitcoin 100x leverage. So, pretty nice gains overall. Like I said, given that we don't have an overall direction on the market, trading with leverage can be a little dangerous. But again, like, trading with such high leverage allows you to essentially have some of these small moves be actually very meaningful in terms of gains. So if you decide to do it, I've had pretty good success so far. I also I'm not trading with anything that I can't afford to lose, just because, as we can see, the overall market is very choppy, and so unless you are pretty good at identifying some of these short-term moves, it could be very dangerous for you. So anyway, if you're interested, please do check out my link in the description below. They are giving you up to $10,000 of a deposit bonus, and then they're also actually doing a $500,000 Caspa airdrop during the month of September. So if you're interested in that, go ahead, sign up, get started trading, and then you can start getting your eligibility ready for that. So moving on back into kind of some Ethereum information, we have some of this short-term, or we have essentially how the Ethereum ETFs have done since they were released in late July. As we can see, the total, we've actually seen 160,000 Ethereum flow out of the ETFs. So unlike Bitcoin, which has seen staggering amounts of volume coming in, Ethereum is actually on the other side, where it's actually seen a lot of Ethereum coming out of the ETFs, which isn't necessarily bearish, but it is something that is definitely contributing to a lot of the instability in the chart, right? Like we've seen, Vitalik taking profits lately. The Ethereum Foundation has been selling to support some of their investments that they've made. The ETFs are also selling Ethereum. This, I think, explains a lot of the recent price struggles that Ethereum has had. And I do think if we continue to see some of this selling pressure, I do potentially see, a breakdown to some of those lower levels. Potentially we settle at the 2100, potentially we break down even further, who knows? But there are a lot of short-term, somewhat bearish things for Ethereum. But overall, like I said, long-term, I don't think this is going to be, a big issue. One thing I have here is, this is a post from somebody on X, Figo, I'm assuming Figo.eth. So I feel like this post sums it up pretty well. Essentially, we're talking about the fundamentals of Ethereum, right? So it's a global asset with really low inflation. You essentially get 2.5% yield, just vanilla ETH staked, and then you can get about another 1.7 with eigenlayer. So you're looking at, above a 4%. All the fundamentals, concerning scalability, the roadmap, all this type of stuff that Ethereum has said they were going to deliver on, they have delivered on. And, he's like, and you're bearish? I think this makes a lot of sense, right? If we look a little bit further down here, we can see that he addresses another key point, which is kind of the layer 2s, right? A lot of people have been saying lately that layer 2s are actually a bad thing because they fragment liquidity, which I would completely agree with. But this is something that, is addressed here and is actually currently coming. I just made a recent video on Polygon specifically, but we can see that, L2s essentially, they scale Ethereum, they allow flexibility into the Ethereum ecosystem as far as like what people need for specific niches and things like that. And so composability essentially equates to what the ag layer is with Polygon, and that is essentially kind of mending a lot of this fractured liquidity, right? It's allowing people to trade interchain, or I guess not interchain, but inter L2 almost seamlessly. It's essentially allowing L2s to function as they need to, but not necessarily bring in like the fractured liquidity issue, right? And so I think if we get composability to a point where fractured liquidity is no longer an issue on Ethereum, this is going to be unbelievably bullish for the Ethereum ecosystem, just because that is kind of the main concern, right? Base right now is like, he's calling it the on-chain gateway drug, which I do think makes a lot of sense concerning Coinbase and the power that they have in the space, as well as just the interest that they have from retail investors. So, there's a lot of these really interesting things going on right now that, to me, fundamentally look very bullish, but I do think that there's going to be short-term choppiness ahead. There's definitely some like hurdles that we need to get over before we start to see the next leg up. And so it would not surprise me if we continue to see ETH go a little bit lower. But again, this is not financial advice. This is not any sort of advice you could possibly imagine, because this is just my opinion, right? I mean, ETH could go to $10,000 tomorrow. I have no idea. I don't think that's going to happen, but it could, right? Nobody knows what the future holds. And so that's just something to consider as you're listening to people on YouTube. Remember, it is all just our opinion. Obviously we have data and we have reasons to support why these are our opinions, but that doesn't mean they can't be wrong. And we might just be making, a false assumption off of wrong data, or maybe we're coming to a false conclusion. So there's a lot of different things like that can happen. If you did enjoy this video, please do like and subscribe. It really does help me out. I'm a relatively new channel, and so I'm trying to get onto the YouTube algorithm and get in front of more people like you that are hopefully interested in the content and find it informative. So a like and subscribe really does help me out with that. If you do have comments, feedback, concerns, whatever, or just want to interact with me, please do leave me a comment. I do respond to all of my comments, and I really enjoy a lot of the comments, feedback, a lot of these things that you guys do bring up in the comment section. So, if you are interested, please do leave me a comment. I really do enjoy that. So thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next video.